There's enough people.
Oh, not yet. God, please. Everyone. Hey. We were just about to get to the app. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Monomoy State Senate debate hosted by the Monomoy Regional High School Political Action Club. My name is Hillevi Segerson, and I will be moderating today's debate. We are privileged today to have three candidates attending: State Senator Julian Cyr, Republican nominee Christopher Lauzon, and, in a while, Independent Joe Van Ness. Please hold your applause until the end of the debate. We thank the candidates here for taking the time to meet with us today. The format of the debate will start with opening statements from each candidate, limited to 90 seconds. Then, our panel of students will ask questions in which the candidates will answer in rotating order. Responses will be limited to 60 seconds. 30-second follow-up responses may be allowed by the moderator. We will end with concluding statements limited to 90 seconds. Our timers will monitor the length of the responses. They will put one hand up when there's 15 seconds left, and another hand up when your time has concluded. The questions were developed and prioritized by the Monomoy Regional High School Political Action Club. Okay. By lot, Senator Cyr has been selected to give the first opening statement. Senator Cyr?
Thank you, Hilavi, and the Political Action Club, and Mr. Dixon, and all of y'all for hosting today and making this happen. My name is Julian Sear. It's a real privilege to be back at Monomoy Regional High School. I'm a big fan of this school. Was lucky enough to have two of your alums who've worked on my team in my office, Megan Callahan and Ashley Benson, who are both alums of the Political Action Club, and was thrilled to welcome your chorus, your select chorus, to the State House this winter with Governor Healy for his State of the State. My name is Julian Sear. I have served as your state senator for the last 8 years, and I've been laser focused on solving big problems and challenges that Cape Codders and Islanders face. I got my start in politics actually when I was in your seats. I was a junior at Nauset Regional High School. We had really big cuts to our arts and music program, and I was part of a student-led effort to convince the taxpayers in the Nauset district to support a Proposition 2.5 override to support quality education. We were successful. It was sort of the first time in my life I realized I could step out into my community and create change, and I've been riffing on that since. So what have we done? We have really taken on and made progress on housing, the most acute challenge that we face as Cape Codders and Islanders. We've come up with significant financing for wastewater projects, generating $204 million in other people's money to provide sewering here in Harwich, which is so important, and so much else. So I see the 15-minute, that means 15, that's 15 or 30? 75 seconds, all right, I got more to go here. Really working on affordability. We passed a $1 billion tax relief package. We focused on investing in education, including K-12 education, free community college, and also early ed as well. So I've really been leading on a number of issues. I've been honored to have the support of Cape Codders and Islanders in prior elections, and I'm working hard to earn those votes once again. And it's great to be here with Chris and with Joe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Sear. The next opening statement will be from Mr. Van Ness.
Thanks for hosting. I'm sorry I'm late. Coming from the vineyard, the boats are always kind of tricky. I'm running for something slightly different than my opponents here. What we're facing is a world with a globalist power that is growing, and it is using a system of divide and conquer tactics to agitate the population. They're raising our taxes to buy weapons for mass destruction that we can send overseas and destroy economies with countries we disagree with, and the result is people are leaving those countries and they're coming here. And at the same time, our taxes, which are being raised to fund wars, are having the effect that people in our district can no longer afford to live here. And rather than looking at the problem that's causing this, we're being used as you know, people in history always have been. It's divide and conquer. Our population is being encouraged to look at the immigration problem rather than the people who are causing this problem. It's like two different anthills being agitated. And everybody knows that globalism is the problem, localism is the solution, and I want to talk about those solutions. Thank you.
The final opening statement will be from Mr. Lozon.
Thank you to the students of Monomoy for hosting this forum and for everyone who's here today. My name's Christopher Lozon. I'm not a professional politician. I'm a mechanic in a third-generation family business, a father of 4 from 18 down to 5 years old, and a husband. When I speak on the issues we face as a region, it's from lived experiences. I'm enduring the same challenges as everyone else. I grew up here, and unless we have a change in policy, my kids will not be able to make a life here. I believe it's past time for our politicians to answer to us rather than the other way around. And as I visit every part of the district, I'm struck by the common struggles and concerns. We've all been hit hard by inflation and reckless state spending, which leaves us working harder for less. Boston has the audacity to demand more of our tax dollars while spending at a record pace. My campaign is about helping our people, not special interests, not lobbyists, and not those who've broken our laws to be here. I'll secure a better future for the next generation of the Cape and Islands by making our communities affordable again, amending the right to shelter, and protecting our environment from industrialization. As your next state senator, I'll make a positive difference for everyone in this room. The issues we face are not about right or left, but right or wrong. The incumbent's taking us in the wrong direction, and I'll correct course with transparency, accessibility, and accountability. Thank you.
Now on to the questions. Our first question will be asked by Sophia.
Hi. What should the legislature do to help more people to be able to afford to live on Cape Cod? For example, should short-term rentals be restricted?
Our first answer will be given by Mr. Van Ness.
Cape Cod and the islands are becoming less and less affordable because the banks are taking too much. Our tax dollars are being extracted in a way where we're forced to go to loans for the bank. The bank owns our political system. It makes sense for them to encourage our state to raise taxes on us. There's a way around this. We need to re-examine Agricultural Tax 61A. This is a law designed for farmers. It was put in place in an age when the farm was 40 acres and a mule. It was designed to include everybody. It's set at 8 acres at a time, again at a time when everybody had 8 acres. Today, nobody has 8 acres. We need to rework that law to include farms with 1 acre or more. Farm production has gone way up since this law was first passed. You can make a very healthy living on 1 acre, and it gets around overly taxing our land.
Thank you, Mr. Van Ness. Our next question will be given by Aubrey. Or next answer, sorry. Our next answer will be given by Mr. Lauzon.
Yeah, so affordability in housing, this is the big issue always on the Cape and Islands. We've been talking about it since I was the age of the kids in this room and before that. Like I said, unless we make some changes, my kids and the students here, you won't be able to afford to live here. So we've seen the results of the incumbent's policies. He's been in for 8 years. The cost of the median home price in Barnstable on Martha's Vineyard has doubled. Median home price on Nantucket has tripled. So what the state is doing is not working. I'm advocating for a complete review of state housing policy. The affordable housing policy in particular, Chapter 40B, I think has been ineffective. We need local solutions. I'm going to advocate strongly for local control. I think Harwich knows what's best for Harwich. Barnstable knows what's best for Barnstable. All of the communities know what's best for their communities. So when we have a Boston approach coming down to the Cape and Islands, it doesn't work. We need a Cape and Islands approach for our people here, and that will help bring down the cost of housing and the cost of living in general.
Our last answer to this question will be given by Senator Sear.
So I ran for this office, right, because of housing. And if because of Cape Codders and Islanders of my generation and yours don't get involved in the future of this place, we're not going to have a year-round community. And what I've done is partner with each and every one of the 19 towns in the Cape and Islands District to figure out what are the tools that they wish they could deploy, that they need to, yes, provide more affordable housing, but also to move towards preserving and creating year-round housing for so many folks in our community. The teachers in this school who make this place run are going to need our help as a community to afford to live here. So I worked with Governor Healy, with my colleagues in the legislature, and we tailored a Cape Cod and Islands specific solution. It's called the Seasonal Communities Designation. We got the governor to support it in the Affordable Homes Act. The House sustained it, and the Senate actually expanded upon it. It is now law. And this is giving our communities tools like a year-round housing trust, which the town of Chatham has asked for, and a home rule petition, year-round deed restrictions, the ability to provide housing for municipal workers, like those in our schools. So I'm laser focused on this issue. We're making progress. We have a lot more to do. Briefly on short-term rentals, municipalities already have the ability to restrict those short-term rentals, and I'd encourage all of y'all to take a look at that and ask your towns to move further.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Sear. We would ask that the candidates please respect the time limits so that we can get to as many issues as possible today. Our next question will be asked by Aubrey.
With Cape Cod at risk of increased erosion from rising sea levels, how would Massachusetts address the issue of climate change?
Our first response to this question will be given by Mr. Lauzon.
So this is a critical issue, obviously. We're a maritime coastal community. We're dealing with changing climate and changing conditions on our coastline. And we do need to transition to cleaner energy as part of that. I disagree with the offshore wind projects that are in progress right now south of the islands. I disagree with proposals to put thousands of these turbines east of the Cape. I don't think that's the right way forward. I'd like to see more investment and research into hydropower. I think that's a much more viable alternative. Solar power obviously has its place. And micronuclear, there's been advancements in that as well. So we need to transition to cleaner energy. I don't think the way the state is doing it is appropriate or responsible, quite honestly. There have been hard deadlines set that we're not going to be able to meet economically or pragmatically for zero carbon emissions, but we need to move forward with that so we can address that issue. And obviously, working with our local communities again. All the local communities know what they need to deal with coastal resiliency, and I'm going to secure funding to do what they need to do.
Our next response will be given by Senator Sear.
So actually right now, this morning and later today, the Senate is actually taking action and voting on climate legislation. This is the third climate bill we've done in the last 3.5 years. Very substantial in moving Massachusetts towards a net zero carbon future by 2050. This is essential, especially for those of you across your lifetime and my lifetime, what we are seeing. But we here on Cape Cod and the islands, we need to be part of the solution, right? We are quite literally at the forefront of eroding coasts, of having to make tough decisions about how we're going to live our lives here at Land's End. And so I've been really proud to have worked on a whole host of renewable energy initiatives included in this bill, actually that we're going to be taking up and passing, includes provisions to allow solar panels within historic districts. This is an issue we've had. When it comes to offshore wind, this is part of the solution, right? And I've been loud and clear that the developers of these projects need to be have a resolute commitment to being good neighbors to our communities, and they haven't done so this summer, and we're asking for better. But by and large, this is the way we've got to go, and this is where we've been leading.
Thank you. Our last response will be from Mr. Van Ness.
A lot of my responses are going to be cyclical. Again, the solution to globalism is localism. And what can we do as locals to address climate change? We need to encourage the production of local food. There's nothing more green than growing food on the acre next to the person who's going to be buying the food. It takes, if you have a 1 gallon bottle of water that you buy in the supermarket, half that gallon is used in gasoline to ship the water to us. So it takes half a gallon of gasoline to ship a gallon of water to us. Roads get clogged. We have people sitting on acres of land they're just using to fertilize the grass with. The most grown crop in this country is lawn grass, and it takes a lot of fertilizer. It leaches into the watersheds. It gets into our estuaries, our marshes. We need to ask ourselves what we can be doing to solve this issue, and the solution is rework the tax laws so that everyone with an acre of land can make a living doing the right thing for the planet and doing well economically for themselves in the process.
Thank you.
May I follow up briefly on that?
Yes, go ahead.
So I assume Senator Sear is referring to the bill, the climate bill that stalled at the end of the session is being considered again. And that really is more irresponsible legislation. It takes local control away for energy facility sightings. There's already a problem with state agencies coming into local communities and forcing these things, substations we're seeing with the offshore wind projects. The solution to our environmental issues are not to industrialize our coastlines and industrialize our local communities. That's not the answer.
Go ahead.
If I may, this is not what the bill does. What the bill does is essentially has a consolidated local approval process and state approval process. If we have the existing status quo, we're never going to get to our net zero carbon emissions goal by 2050. Like we're just going to fail completely. We're already so behind, right? So, and I think also we need to be part of the solution here. Right? Look at where your energy was coming from. Just a few short years ago, when you turned on the lights here, that electricity came from Brayton Point, which was a coal plant outside of Fall River, or that electricity came from Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, which we worked really hard to close. We've got to be part of the solution, and that's what we're working towards.
Thank you. Mr. Van Ness, you have the last one.
I wasn't expecting to rebut this. We just need to, again, it's not your responsibility to grow your own food, but we need to open up. We need to open up government regulations so that you can make money if you do. So I was a farmer for 10 years. It's a great career choice. There's things we can do to make it more profitable. Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Sean.
What's your opinion on question 2? What should the role of MCAS be?
The role of what?
What? MCAS.
Julian Sear?
Sure. I support question 2. I actually, when I graduated high school, that we were the first class that had to meet MCAS standards and pass the MCAS to graduate. And by and large, that worked for most all kids, the majority, but not everyone. We have about a few thousand students who are unable to pass the MCAS every year. I think if you're doing the work, if you're in school, you should be able to have an alternate path, right, to graduate, not just having that standard. I'd like to, we expect this is going to pass. If it does pass, I'd like to make sure that we tweak the law a bit to make sure there's uniform standards. Question 2, as written now, essentially allows the school district to figure out what the graduation requirement would be. There should be some uniform standards from the state on an alternative requirement. But this is something I support. I also want to, just highlight, we have worked really hard to invest in our public education, and the Senate's led the way in this, including a historic Student Opportunity Act. This is $1 billion investment that has brought dollars right back here to Monomoy and across the Cape. Also free community college now. We're seeing college enrollment across the country decline. Not here in Massachusetts. Why? Because of free community college. That's something we got done.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Mr. Van Ness.
Standardized testing is the most useless form of education that we can be asking our children to commit themselves to. It's a total waste. No, it is, and none of you guys can vote now, but you will, right? And you're going to remember this, like I did. The entire education system is based on a Prussian system of military indoctrination. It was created 100 years ago, 150 years ago, at a time when they needed mindless drone soldiers. You guys are all victim of this system, and unfortunately, you're not being given a chance to spend time creating your own thoughts and dreams. We can create the reality we want, but it's not going to be done if we're focused on getting an A in standardized tests. Those tests are created to raise money for the schools that get the best test scores.
Thank you. Our last response will be from Mr. Lozon.
So I went back and forth on this question. I already cast my vote, actually. I encourage everyone in the room who's able to vote, go vote early. You can do that right now. So I voted no on it, not because I think MCAS is working. I don't think it's working, but I think the question is flawed. To take that requirement away without having a replacement in place, I think is irresponsible. MCAS does need to be replaced. I don't think it's effective, and it's not a failure of the students or the teachers. It's a failure of the system. So that test is flawed. It needs to be replaced, but I think leaving the test in place while removing the graduation requirement from it is counterintuitive. We need to come up with a replacement before we remove that requirement. And my oldest just graduated high school. She's off in college. My second is in high school right now, so he's gearing up for MCAS. And I was one of the first, I'm right behind Julian, I was one of the first classes that had to pass it, so I'm familiar with it. I think it needs to be changed, but I don't think the question is what it should be at this point, so that's why I voted no.
Our next question will be asked by Aubrey.
What should Massachusetts do to protect women's rights?
Mr. Van Ness?
I think Massachusetts is doing a fine job protecting women's rights. We can get out of the system of debt slavery. We can all strive to free our economy so that we can do what we want with our money. I believe in my body, my choice. I believe that anytime the system can divide and conquer us at will, it's black versus white, man versus woman, rich versus poor, fat versus skinny, tall and short. And I think in order to free ourselves of the system, we have to recognize that it's a monetary system and promote Bitcoin, which is free of global control.
Mr. Lozon?
Yeah, so on women's rights, we need to protect everyone's rights. So I think we should be proud in Massachusetts that, people have the right to live their lives the way they want to, make the choices in their lives that they want to. Abortion specifically, protected by the Massachusetts Constitution. Roe Act is settled, the Shield Act. These are all things that are settled in Massachusetts law. I'm not seeking to change any of that, We can have disagreements on some of the terms of that, but there's zero chance any of those things are going to be changed no matter who wins this election or any election, really. In Massachusetts, that's not going to change. So my focus is on making sure that everyone in this community has the best possible path forward, securing their rights, securing a more affordable future. So, when it comes to women's rights specifically, I think Massachusetts already has very strong laws protecting reproductive rights. There's a lot of things already in place, and I'm not seeking to change those.
Senator Sear?
So this issue is absolutely not settled, and I say this as someone who's a feminist, as a queer person who has worked tooth and nail to put in place protections and not rest on our laurels here in Massachusetts. When the Dobbs decision was leaked, Massachusetts was one of the first states in the country to pass what is known as the SHIELD Act, right? Protecting providers of abortion care. I was the senator who led the way in putting language to protect gender-affirming care, which is so important to my generation, to your generation. We have not rested on our laurels here. When it comes to abortion, Cape Cod has been an abortion desert since I was in high school. I led the way bringing abortion services back to Hyannis, and we brought abortion services to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket for the very first time. So but we have more work to do here. If you look at the wage gap between women and men, it is still glaring. We've worked hard to provide more resources and affordability for families, including in our $1 billion tax package, doubling the child and family tax credit up to $400, lifting the cap on that. So we've got a lot of work to do here. And let's also be clear, this is the abortion election. And if you are voting for Donald Trump, you are voting against women. You're voting against the right to an abortion. And for me, that is unacceptable.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Sophia.
How would you make mental health resources more available to people in Massachusetts, especially teenagers who may be experiencing high stress levels?
Mr. Lozon?
Yeah, so we have a real deficit of mental health services across the state, but especially here on the Cape and Islands. And when we talk about that, it's always about resources, money, professionals in the community. So it does tie back into affordability. We need housing for mental health professionals to live in the community, and we need funding from the state to help with those services, to provide facilities to provide those services. And this is something, my state representative, I live in Barnstable, I'm in the 5th Barnstable District. State Representative Steve Exaros has spoken about the desire for a mental health facility here on the Cape. I'm very much in support of that. I think if we look at the way the state is spending money, we can find the money to fund a facility like that. If we spend more responsibly, the state does not have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. We're spending billions of dollars to house migrants in the state. We're spending, 4 times as much to build a mile of road as New Hampshire. We can cut our spending where it needs to be cut and fund critical services like this, and that's something I'll fight for as senator.
Senator Sear?
I love this question. And when I was in your shoes or seats, and for a while after, I was someone who really struggled with anxiety and with depression. For me, that was about being a little different. And I've really brought that into my policy work. I chair the Joint Committee on Public Health. I'm the vice chair of the Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery Committee. I was the lead author on the Mental Health ABC Act, which was signed into law by Governor Baker 2 years ago. This is the largest reform of mental health services access insurance coverage that the Commonwealth has ever seen. I also led the way in deploying $192 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to bolster our behavioral health workforce. The scholarships, the loan repayments, the clinical supervision that we need to build the behavioral health workforce to provide services here on Cape Cod, on the islands. I led the way in making sure that we had a community behavioral health center, not only in Hyannis, but also one on Nantucket and also one on Martha's Vineyard. So this is very sort of deep to very close to me. I'm really proud of what we've been able to do. There's a lot more work to be done. Chris is right, like the housing crisis and housing for healthcare workers is also a part of this, but really something critically important. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Our next question will be asked by...
I didn't go.
Sorry,
That's all right.
Mr. Van Ness.
So our food industry, unfortunately, is owned by the pharmaceutical industry, and they're putting drugs in all of the things we eat. I don't know the last time you read the ingredients on a package of bread. It's supposed to be 3 things. It's a whole paragraph of things we can't pronounce. We have atrazine in the food. We have benzodine in the food. These are hormonal changing chemicals. We have petroleum-based food dyes, chemicals that are so toxic you're not actually allowed to transport them in this country unless it's in a product that says food coloring, which is kind of absurd. We can't begin to address mental illness without having a serious conversation of the medicines that we are being forced to consume based on the fact that there's nothing else to eat. So we're being poisoned in this country by the Democrats and the Republicans have weaponized incompetence in a sense that it's okay that for almost 50 years we've been consuming toxins.
Now our next question will be asked by Aubrey.
How can the state help towns on Cape Cod with our wastewater problem? Do we need more sewer systems? How can we pay for this?
Senator Sear?
So this is probably one of the biggest things that I've been able to deliver. Working with former State Representative Sarah Peake, we co-authored the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund in 2018. What this does is take a 2.75% surcharge on room occupancy, puts it into a dedicated fund to help towns like Harwich, help towns like Chatham pay for wastewater. To date, 4 years of the fund, $204 million in other people's money has been going to our towns, cutting the cost of wastewater projects by 25%. Before this fund was created, we frankly were dragging our feet. We weren't doing what we needed to do. Our towns were being sued because of our non-compliance with the Clean Water Act. So I'm sort of very proud of this. Wastewater is critical for two reasons. One, we've got to be good stewards of our fragile marine environment. Over 90% of our estuaries and embayments on Cape Cod are impaired because of Title V septic systems, because of cesspools. And also, wastewater infrastructure is how we're going to build the denser year-round housing that we need to continue to have a year-round community.
Thank you, Senator Sear. Mr. Van Ness?
I served on the Board of Health in my town, West Tisbury. We did not have a sewer system. There's a lot of septic tanks and composting toilets. So as far as town sewage goes, that's something I'd have to look into. But I know that there's a lot of Cape Codders who are on outdated septic systems, and to put a new one in is very expensive. And our technology has progressed past the level of Title V. We need to update Title V in the sense that we can oxygenate our septics. As a farmer, I do a lot of composting, not humidor composting, but I'm familiar with anaerobic and aerobic bacteria. So if we can introduce oxygen to the septic systems, we can prevent a lot of the leaching that's occurring and running off into our larger estuaries.
Mr. Lauzon?
So sewering wastewater, it is very critically important. Senator Sear's right on a lot of this, and I applaud him for getting the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund passed, but that's something that happened 7 years ago. That was in his first term. So what are we doing now to make this happen? He's right. This should have been done 30, 40, 50 years ago. This should have been started a long time ago. Now we're up against the clock. Now we're facing significant costs. And I think the state really needs to pony up and provide our local communities with the resources that are needed. And that's something we're dealing with in my hometown in Barnstable. I'm on the finance committee for the town. I'm very aware of our sewer project, the CWMP. It's a 30-year project. It's going to be well over $1 billion. We're facing a lot of significant headwinds on that. But we're going to figure it out. And again, the state needs to pony up the resources for our local towns to do this. And the federal government. The federal government's requiring this as well. It needs to be done. We need an advocate who's going to get those resources so it doesn't come out of our pockets.
Okay. I will allow a 30-second follow-up.
Just, if I may, we haven't stopped there with the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. In the tax package we passed, we tripled the Title V septic tax credit so that homeowners can upgrade their septic systems. And in the FY25 budget, the budget we just passed includes a provision that allows the tax credit to apply to sewer hookups, right? So when the sewer's coming down the road in Harwich and your parents or teachers need to hook up, it's a very costly thing. They now can write that off on their taxes. So we haven't stopped there. We've been bringing home the bacon on this issue, and it's clearly made the difference. $33 million has gone to Chris's hometown alone because of this fund.
Thank you. Our next follow-up will be given by Mr. Van Ness.
Again, I'm not too familiar with the sewage problem on the Cape and Islands. I think there's still many people who are outside the sewage system who can benefit from an update on Title V septic systems. That's really all I have to say on that one.
Thank you. Our last follow-up will be given by Mr. Lauzon.
Yeah, so I would just say we can't stop. We have to keep fighting. We need a tenacious advocate on this. And the sewering, that's the biggest part of the solution, but we do need alternative systems too. There are alternative septic systems that can be used in different communities. That might be a better option on the Vineyard, for instance. Might be a better option in West Barnstable, which is not getting any sewering as part of the current project. But the point is we need a strong advocate on this, and that's what I'll be.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Sean.
What action should Massachusetts take on the rights of LGBTQ students?
Mr. Van Ness?
I think everybody has the right to live their life the way they want to live it. I know there's a lot of teasing. I know there's a lot of behavior which I know this is an issue that affects everybody in this room. But I also think we're being fed a lot of information that is being used to divide and conquer us. There's no reason that gay and straight alliances can't be made to come together and look past this issue so that we can
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next response will be given by Mr. Lozon.
Yeah, so this, I think you're going to hear a lot of agreement up here that, again, we should be proud to live in Massachusetts where people are free to live their lives as they see fit. And I know Senator Sear is going to talk about some legislation about wording in the law that was changed, and that's great. When we see those things in the law, those holes, those glaring, misstatements in the law, those things should be modernized, those things should be changed so everyone has the same rights in our communities. I don't separate people out. When I'm out talking to people, I don't ask them if they're a member of the LGBTQ community or what country they come from or anything else. I'm interested in representing everyone in the district. That's what I'll do. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Log Cabin Republicans of Greater Boston. That is an LGBTQ group of Republicans. The president of that group is coming down this weekend to knock doors with me. He's a good friend of mine. So like I say, we should be proud to live in Massachusetts where people have the right to live as they see fit. And that's actually consistent with the Republican Party. We're all about personal rights, liberties, and responsibility. That's who I am. That's what I'm going to represent.
Thank you. Our last response will be
Sure,
given.
thank you. So first of all, I am tenacious from wastewater to LGBTQ rights, right? And I've been working on this since long before I was in elected office. I was a member of the state's LGBTQ Youth Commission. I chaired that commission. We worked with the Department of Education to author first in the nation guidance back in 2013 about how do we support transgender and gender nonconforming students. That became the model guidance for what the Obama administration used to support students federally. In the Senate, I've been taking on any and all opportunities I can to ensure that rights are preserved, access to gender-affirming care exists. Here in Massachusetts, look, we like to think, oh, it's Massachusetts. We were first in the nation in marriage. That was when I was a senior in college 20 years ago. We can't rest on our laurels. Massachusetts is fourth in the nation for book ban attempts. That's why I filed book ban legislation. And I do want to be clear, right, and I appreciate my colleagues' support here, but nationally, the Republican Party is going out spending millions of dollars against trans kids and politicizing our lives and our rights, and that is really unacceptable, and I just can't stand with a party that exploiting human beings for short-term political gain. They did it in 2004, they're doing it again, and it's shameful.
Thank you.
If I may respond to that just briefly.
Of course, go ahead.
I don't answer for anyone else. I answer for Chris Lozon. So I'm a Republican. I'm proud to stand for conservative values. Those are consistent with personal choice, personal liberty. That's how our party has been since the founding. It's still the party of Lincoln. It's the party of Calvin Coolidge. It's the party of Dwight Eisenhower, Ronald Reagan. These are great leaders in our past. Those are idols of mine. I stand for those values. I don't answer for Donald Trump. I don't answer for anyone on the national stage. I'm concerned with the Cape and Islands and Massachusetts, period.
Would you like to offer a follow-up?
No, I don't have a rebuttal.
I mean, I work regularly with people like Bruce Tarr and Pat O'Connor, who are my Republican colleagues in the legislature, on LGBTQ issues, and that's really crucial. But I think we need to call out that the GOP, deeply regrettably, has so strayed here on this issue, and this is something that is critically important to my generation, to your generation, and I've just got to call out what's happening. But I do appreciate the collaborative, collegiate approach we've taken on this issue, but I think we need to stay vigilant here. 2 years ago in the election cycle, someone was driving around Hyannis with a sign in their car that said, no to legal prostitution, no to pedophilia, no to Julian Sear, right? That's the kind of homophobic dog whistles that are from the past we need to get away from.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, I condemned that.
To
that had
Chris's
nothing to
credit,
do with my campaign.
you did condemn that, right? But that's an element that exists in our community, and I think we got to call it out, not just say, oh, we're Massachusetts.
I would ask the candidates please respect the time limits just so that we can get as many issues as possible. But thank you. Our next question will also be asked by Sean.
What can we do to reduce income inequality and poverty on Cape Cod?
Mr. Lauzon?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, so again, it goes back to affordability and opportunity, and the way, the ultimate issue is the way the state is spending our money, and that affects local aid that comes into our communities. And when local aid is reduced, that raises property taxes, it raises the cost of living for everyone. So again, I'm on the Finance Committee in Barnstable. We're seeing that happen as a result of the way the state is recklessly spending our money. Chapter 70 is education funding. I'm sure your teachers are very familiar with it. In Barnstable, we were expecting a certain amount based on the previous years. Fiscal 25 is coming in significantly lower than that, so that causes challenges in the community. You have to raise that money somewhere, and ultimately it will come on the backs of the citizens if you can't reallocate money from other sources. So, when we talk about affordability and the wage gap and things like that and how people can afford to live in our communities, it all goes back to state spending and the state's priorities. Those priorities are out of whack. That's something I'm going to work very hard to change so we can get more local aid, and that will bring down the cost of living for everyone.
Senator Sear?
So we've been laser focused on affordability, including a $1 billion tax relief package the governor signed into law last year, the largest tax relief we've done in living memory. That includes doubling the threshold for the estate tax. It includes the child and family tax credit, which I mentioned. It includes a doubling of the senior citizen circuit breaker. And so we've been really trying to get more resources to low and moderate income residents here in Massachusetts, to families. We've actually had record local aid come to our towns, which is thanks to a Senate-led initiative. We've had $1 billion flowing to our K-12 schools because of the Student Opportunity Act. And then, of course, you can't talk about affordability on Cape Cod without talking about housing. I'm really proud of the Seasonal Communities designation, which is in the Affordable Homes Act. But what I have been the leading voice for in the state is a local option transfer fee. This would take a surcharge basically on luxury real estate transactions, put that to housing. 12 of the 19 towns in this district support it. I am the lead champion on this. One of my opponents actually opposes a transfer fee. So that's another way we can help keep people affording a life on the Cape and Islands.
Thank you. Our last response will be given by Mr. Van Ness.
The hardest part of opening a business in this community is our compliance laws. Getting all the paperwork in, complying with all the town codes and ordinances is a major barrier to creating wealth for ourselves. Taxes are being talked about, and how are we going to raise taxes for rich people? Taxes were not invented for rich people. They were invented to take from the poor and subsidize the rich. There's no way around that. We can word it how we want, but wealthy people will always be able to buy their way out of taxes. They benefit from them by using tax money to subsidize social programs which benefit them more than they're benefiting us. We need to ask ourselves, where do we see this community in 50 years? Do we want it to be a green place? So again, this comes back to 61A, agricultural tax. We all need to be able to make money on our own land down to an acre, and we need to be able to restore the cottage industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last question of today will be asked by Sophia.
How would you make preschool and childcare more accessible for families on Cape Cod?
Mr. Sear?
So we've been working on this in a quite sustained way. There's Common Start legislation, which I have been a big champion on, along with Senator Sue Moran, my colleague in representing the Upper Cape. And this is about providing more resources to our early ed providers, right? If you look at payment and what the folks who are caring for our littlest are getting paid. It's unacceptably low. We took rescue plan dollars, funneled resources into that system, and we're the only state in the country to continue those dollars flowing to early ed and childcare programs. In the FY25 budget, there's a whole host of policies and programs meant to really bolster not only what we pay the good folks who are doing this, but also to bring more people into that workforce. So this has been just sort of a real key priority. When you talk about affordability, housing and then childcare, right? If you've got a family, that's a huge, huge, huge cost. The other piece we've worked to do is to get communities, especially in the Outer and Lower Cape, to be giving vouchers, subsidies to help families afford childcare.
Thank you. Mr. Van Ness?
It's funny how expensive raising children is. It seems to be a basic human right, yet no one can afford to do it, or less and less people can afford to do it now. This is going to come down to personal responsibility and compliance laws. Childcare is expensive because in order to legally take care of children, you have to comply with A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. And I understand safety is important, but we can't expect legislators are not qualified to deal with this issue, even if it's not fair for us to expect an unqualified government to deal with our children. So the issue is how do we promote cottage industries where one or both parents can stay at home, and if not, allow for cottage industries where child care can be trusted to neighbors that don't have to jump through endless hoops just to be able to babysit and educate on a younger level.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Lozon?
Yeah, so this is not a theoretical issue for me. I'm the only candidate up here who has kids. I have 4 kids, like I said. So I understand this on a personal level, how difficult it is and how expensive it is. You know, my wife and I have struggled for years just to cover the cost of living associated with, childcare, obviously. I'm lucky that we got through to the point where my youngest is in kindergarten now because the childcare issue is significant. And Senator Sear talks about vouchers for local communities. All these things cost money. So again, the state is spending our money in the wrong places. When you're spending $1 billion on the right to shelter for housing migrants, when you're spending more money on infrastructure than we should be, when the state's EBT program goes up 40% year over year, 40% of residents in Massachusetts are now getting EBT benefits. That's indicative of a systemic problem. Our policies are not working. We need to redirect where this funding is going, make things more affordable for our people. And this, like I said, it's not theoretical for me. I'm living it. So that's going to be something I champion very hard.
Thank you. Due to time limitations, we will have to end our questions there and ask the candidates to make concluding statements. The first concluding statement will be from Senator Sear.
Well, thank you all for your time this morning, and this is just really terrific, right? We need more of these sort of conversations, discussions, debates in our politics here, and I'm really grateful to Chris and to Joe, and especially to Monomoy for making this happen. I'm a lifelong Cape Codder who's been working tenaciously to solve the big challenges that we face here on the Cape and Islands. I've been doing that with Republicans, Democrats, Independents, even so much so that my 2018 opponent, John Flores, now supports me. And we have made headway on big challenges: housing, wastewater, rural transportation. We didn't talk about the record funding that Democrats secured to replace the Sagamore Bridge, early education, free community college. We didn't talk about forever chemicals, which I've been leading on in my work in the Senate. But we have so much more to do. I'm really excited to get back into the next session to work on climate resilience. We're hoping to take up a big climate resilience bill, address ocean acidification, which has been a real threat to our aquaculture industry, get this PFAS bill signed into law to ban forever chemicals, and then once and for all get this local option transfer fee, which is a tool that towns like Harwich and Chatham could use tomorrow to build and preserve the year-round housing that we so desperately need. I'm just really proud of my track record of success, of working in a collaborative, sort of joyful manner, and I'm asking the voters and aspirational voters of the Cape and Islands District for the opportunity to serve you once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next concluding statement will be given by Mr. Van Ness.
The banks own everything, from the cars on the road to the houses. Even if you think you own your house, at the end of the day, the bank owns it. It owns the chemicals that are being put in the food. We need to recognize the system for what it is. I'm not these two are attacking the system from the inside, and I salute that, but I don't think that's the strategical approach to continue taking. We've tried this for how many decades now? And when I talk about the education system, I'm not bad-mouthing your teachers. They're limited within the construct of a larger system, and they're doing their best to make this world a better place. Unfortunately, the two-party system has monopolized politics, and we can't trust them to uphold our antitrust laws, which prevents large companies from monopolizing and owning all the resources, because the two-party system is a monopoly. For example, running for president as an independent is almost impossible because the two parties have come together and made signature requirements in their states impossible to comply with. For me to get on the ballot as an independent for larger office, I would need 10,000 signatures to run for U.S. Senate, 10,000 for governor. This is gate holding. This is gatekeeping. We need to look for solutions that allow more people in this room to stand up and do what's required of us as Americans, is to run for office.
Thank you.
At a time.
Our final concluding statement will be from Mr. Lozon.
Thank you again to the host. Thanks for everybody in the audience. Any of the students, are you voting for the first time in this election? Do you mind raising your hand if you are? Because that's great. I see some back there. That's excellent. Like I said, you can vote early if you want to, but make sure you show up. So, we've heard competing visions here today, and we've heard the incumbent talk about leading the way on these things. Leading the way while we continue to struggle here on the Cape and Islands, while housing has doubled and tripled in our communities, while the homeless population has almost doubled since he took office. All of these things continue to get worse. So if that's leading the way, respectfully, we need different leadership. We deserve and need better. I won't support making Massachusetts a sanctuary state as the incumbent has. I will not take campaign contributions from offshore wind companies that are trying to industrialize our coast as the incumbent has. My friends and donors won't get no-bid contracts from the state as a friend of the incumbent has. That's politics as usual. That's not what we need. That's a state senator who's part and parcel of the system on Beacon Hill. He's protecting his own interests rather than the interests of the people who elected him. We deserve better. We deserve a state senator who cares about everyone in the community, someone who will have tough conversations one-on-one with constituents who may not agree with him, someone who can help you change a tire on the side of the road if you break down. I'm a mechanic. Give me a call if I'm in the area. I'll help you out. We deserve a state senator who will put the Cape and Islands first. That's what I will do for each and every one of you every day. And I appreciate your time. Thank you for your vote.
I would like to thank the candidates for taking time from their busy schedules to participate in this debate. I'd also like to thank the student panel of questioners, our timers, and our video and technical team. Thank you also to our school administration for supporting this event and to our students and guests in attendance. We wish the candidates good luck in the election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.